Here's Dan Campbell
some V real quick.
Talking to the media. Two clips, one about the Saints themselves, and then the other one just about the future and how the Lions can bounce back.
Man, I'm not getting worried. I love this. I'm serious. I love this, and I love that. Man, it's doom and gloom outside our building, and we got 6 to go. We got an unbelievable opportunity, and I love it. I really do, man. So this is what we find out what we're made of. And really everybody in this league for that matter. You're talking about the month of December, and this is where there's teams that will begin to rise and teams that will fall out of this. And I love our team. I love where we're at, and I know the guys that we have in the locker room. I know these coaches, so this will be good. It's a tough place to play, too. This is going to be an unbelievable environment, and it's hard to win there, but it's exactly what you want. I mean, this is exactly what you want. This is another one of those. You start talking about these places you get to go play at, man. We talked about Arrowhead. You talk about going to Lambeau. You get to go to the Superdome. I mean, there's nothing sweeter than this. You come out with a win out in that environment. So it's a formidable opponent. It doesn't matter how many guys they have out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we're going to have out because we'll probably have a couple out again. It's about getting ready to play your best football against a team you have to assume is going to play their best football. That's what it is.
And there you have it, Dan Campbell speaking to the media. A couple of interesting things that he kind of was talking about there. I love Dan when they ask him about any adversity, and he's just like, "I love this. I absolutely love this." Yeah, you know what? And they're definitely being tested. And I think the Saints game is a good test because again, they're a top 10 defense. The Lions, they have a top 10 defense, but the Saints have some big-time players. I mean, they got Cam Jordan, who's questionable. Even offensively, they got some guys that are questionable. Chris Olave left last week with an injury. It was a concussion?
Chris Olave, yeah, concussion, and then Shaheed was a quad.
So yes. the concussions are tricky. That could go either way. He could be out this game. He could not be. It just depends how they deal with it. But regardless, pretty good defensive line. I mean, Cam Jordan, and that's all you need to know. They got other guys on that defensive line. They got that one guy, what's his name?
On the what?
On the Saints defensive line, who was up there in pressures.
Carl Cranderson?
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
But so pressures don't matter.
Well, sacks too, by the way. I'll tell you that. But regardless, they got dudes on their defensive line. They got a good secondary. Adebo's top 5.
Yeah, Paulson Adebo's a guy.
Paulson Adebo's that dude. He's top 5 in picks right now, and he's a playmaker, man.
Even Marcus May in the back. He was a guy that I wanted in Detroit for a while.
Marcus May.
Tyron.
They got some names. I mean, Demario Davis.
At all 3 levels.
Yeah.
I mean, they have some dudes where if that team gets hot, especially because Dennis Allen is a defensive head coach, they can kind of just get the defense side of the ball going. It'll keep them in any game.
Yeah, and that's what the thing about Dennis Allen is. You can't really question what he can do defensively. I mean, the defense has been great all year, and that's the one thing with Dennis Allen I don't question much. Now I do question offensively what they have going on. They just had back-to-back losses. They lost to the Atlanta Falcons 24-15, and then they lost to the Minnesota Vikings with Derek Carr being injured. Jameis Winston came in. They lost 27-19. So, they're coming off a 2-game streak. They're going to be ready to go. I think it's a great test. Lions are on the road. Right now, according to ESPN Bet, Lions are favored by 4 at this moment. And, of course, they give the home team about 3 points. So they essentially have the Lions by about a touchdown, which I think is fair at this point. Before, Sam, we kind of talked about this before the last stretch of games with how well the Lions were playing. The schedule looked a lot differently. This game to us was a more of a, the Saints could give them a run for their money, but I'm confident the Lions could come out on top. With how they're playing, they got to get it right this week because the Saints, especially defensively, they're a great test. They are.
I mean, they most certainly do. But coming into this game, I know after the Lions obviously suffered that loss that I think we were all disappointed about at home to Green Bay on Thanksgiving, I certainly was more worried about this Saints game. I was worried about the Vikings. But here's what the Bears and the Falcons were able to do the Lions a favor. The Bears were able to knock off the Vikings, who are their closest competition in the division. And say what you want about the Vikings, they had played their way into being a legitimate threat, especially after the Lions had lost to the Packers, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Same when it comes to the Saints. The Falcons were able to knock them off on Sunday, and now I think as long as the Lions, even no matter what happens this Sunday at New Orleans, I think as long as they win the division, which they most certainly will, they're pretty much locked into the 3 seed. The Saints are no longer a threat for that. So
they're playing spoiler.
At this point, they kind of are. But to be fair, they're also playing for a crappy division title. But it would still be a division title and still be a home playoff game. And there are reasons to be afraid of the Saints, but here are some things that I think the Lions can certainly exploit. First of all, the Saints are going to be definitely missing a couple of key pieces. Marshawn Lattimore is on injured reserve, but as you guys mentioned...
He went to IR?
Yes, he's on injured reserve.
Out.
But... as we already mentioned, he's not their best corner anymore. Paulson Adebo is. This isn't the Marshawn Lattimore. This isn't the All-Pro Marshawn Lattimore. Paulson Adebo is actually the All-Pro corner this year. And also, Michael Thomas is on injured reserve, but Michael Thomas is no longer their best receiver. He hasn't been since 2019. It is Chris Olave, who, by the way, is also questionable with a concussion. Cam Jordan is questionable as well, but to give a counter to that, even though you'd rather have a bookend edge rusher, he is no longer their best edge rusher. It's Carl Granderson and Rashid Shaheed. Man, if the Saints lose him, that would be absolutely huge.
He's the receiver that scared me for them the most.
He is what,
outside of Olave, obviously,
he is what we want Jamison Williams to be in a lot of ways. I think Rashid Shaheed is a better player right now, and he's been a little bit more explosive as of now. But we shall see how that goes moving forward. He has been balling for him, so they're going to be missing at least two players, and maybe at least probably at one of three of these questionable guys. We shall see. But another thing that the Lions can certainly take advantage of is the Saints' offense stinks. Derek Carr stinks.
No identity.
No identity whatsoever. I thought coming into the season that Derek Carr and Jared Goff were actually fairly comparable. I no longer think that anymore. Derek Carr is playing no better than Andy Dalton was last year, maybe even a little bit worse. And he's also been hurt for some stretches and for, I don't know how many full games, but definitely for some stretches. But Jameis Winston has come in, and Jameis Winston stinks. So no matter who is playing quarterback for the Saints, there is just nothing that should scare you about them.
Jameis scares the hell out of me though sometimes.
But
if you get Jameis out of a game where it's clicking, man, he just chucks the ball downfield with so much volume that if he just gives the receivers a chance to make plays, and they do against a weak secondary, it's just like, ugh.
That's. I mean, I guess, but it might also go to the defender's arms.
Oh, no,
that is 100%
saying.
clear.
But if he's clicking, man. It's just like the one thing where, like, oh, Jameis Winston is going off against the Lions. Go figure, he would go off against the Lions.
Sure,
this week.
and if the Lions get some injury luck vis-a-vis the Saints, if some of those questionable guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are out, it could certainly be maybe a get-right game for the defense. Because, oh, by the way, you know who stinks more than anybody right now? Jamal Williams is awful, and I kind of feel bad early into the season by thinking that David Montgomery was not as big of an upgrade as maybe you guys thought. And it turns out I was dead wrong. Jamal Williams was 100% a Detroit offensive line merchant because he blows right now. And you know who else kind of stinks? A little quiet as kept. Alvin Kamara is averaging less than 4 yards per carry. He's averaging less than 4 yards per carry. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's not playing well, and the Lions actually have a good rush defense.
Yeah,
that's all I mean.
Well, to Sam's point, because Alvin Kamara, especially, he's a weapon. We know that. But to your point, their offensive line is better pass blocking than they are run blocking.
That's
and that
true.
answer's been, Bob Johnson's question. How is the Saints' offensive line? Well, if you look at sacks given up, Derek Carr has 20. He's been sacked 22 times on the season. Jared Goff's been sacked 20. So it's not like Derek Carr. He's not Sam Howell. You know,
he's no Sam Howell. That's sure. He's prodigy.
Yeah, with how he's playing, but also with how many times Sam Howell's been sacked. He's been sacked 55 times compared to Derek Carr's 22.
Jesus
Christ. Over half.
Free Howell.
Yeah, free Howell. But just to give you some context there, so. Run blocking, and that's why I think it's a great opportunity for this defense. Now, it's tough now, kind of looking at these matchups. I tried to do it last week on Thanksgiving, looking at it like, Jordan Love, one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the NFL. This should be a get-right game for the defense. Oh, boy, I was wrong. He lit them up. Jordan Love absolutely lit them up. So I don't want to even say anything about the offense for the Saints. They have not been playing well. But I ain't going there with this should be a get right. No, this is the NFL. I don't even care how much the Lions win by. Just win the damn game. I don't care if it's by 1, by 2, by 3, win in overtime. I really don't care at this point in the season. You're trying to stay in relevance for the NFC, but also you're just trying to secure the division. They just have to go on the road and get a win. And they've been pretty good with that with Dan Campbell. I spoke about that weeks ago, about his road record and how it's improved. I do think the Lions will win this game, Sam, but the amount, I think this is going to be a close one because it usually is.
No.
These type of situations. You're in December, about to be, injuries you're riddled everywhere, and I think the Lions are at a point right now where, they're turning the ball over. A lot of things they have to correct in a week time, so hopefully they can do those things.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It doesn't matter by how much. If the Lions can go into New Orleans and win this game, I think a lot of us are feeling a lot easier, or who are a little bit on edge right now and have some questions, are put more at ease than we were before, because this is the NFL. This is a team that could still win the NFC South, even how crappy it is, and all the players that I talked about being out. Paulson Adebo is going to be playing. Demario Davis is going to be playing. Carl Granderson is going to be playing. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheen might be playing. Alvin Kamara, there's
Cam Jordan too.
Cam Jordan's questionable, but yes, he might be playing as well. It's just questionable. And if you have Carl Granderson and Cam Jordan as your bookend edge rushers, you could be doing a lot worse than that. Tyrann Mathieu is going to be playing. So if they can go in and win by any means necessary, this is huge for the Lions and their season. And then you can start maybe thinking, the 2 seed might not be out of reach, although the 49ers have been playing well, but they have to go to Philly. For the record, that's a tough game.
You know who I do think it's a get-right game for, if I'm going to use that term? The offensive line. And they've done enough to where they've done well against very, very good pass rushers and good edge rushers. I think this is a game where those guys can get back on track. Now, you hope Jonah Jackson's back, but even if he's not, next man up, even with Colby. Sorry, Neil. You can't blame Colby this time. But those guys, I think, need to step up. And I do think this is a perfect game to do it, Lucas. I do. And I have confidence they will do it.
Yeah, I have complete confidence in the offense. The thing that is making me terrified, though, is no Alex Anzalone with Alvin Kamara.
Which we'll get to that.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, that's what's scaring me. But I do think we're going to see the Lions win a close one, to your point, Jeff. And I'm not expecting them to go out there and blow out this team just because both sides have a lot of injuries. But they're pretty significant on both sides as well. So the Lions just get a win down in New Orleans. It's a tough place to play to just get that ball rolling again so you can pick up momentum as you head into these divisional games.